There are lots of ways for you to participate. We're here with Catherine McKenzie today, but we would love to hear from you. If you scroll down to the bottom, you can see a little Q&A button. That's where we want you to ask questions. You can ask anything you want. You can make a comment there. We'll make sure she hears it or sees it. And then in the chat, Julie will be putting links to Catherine's books and to our books and any other books that we mention. And speaking of books, we are here with our favorite independent bookstore of all time, Warwick's, and Julie. So Julie, tell us a little bit about Warwick's.
Will do. Hopefully we've got a lot of people in San Diego that you already know about Warwick, so you can tune out for a minute or two. But for those of you, and I also wanted to mention, Liz, too, people who are watching us on Facebook can go ahead and put your questions and comments in the Facebook comment section too. So lots of ways, like Liz said, lots of ways for y'all to participate tonight. So Warwick's, we are located, for those of you that maybe, Catherine, where are you calling in from?
I'm actually in LA.
You're in LA. Yeah. Is that okay? There you go.
That's not where I live, but it's where I happen to be right now. So
where do you live?
In Montreal, in Canada.
Okay. Yeah. All right, that's right. Okay, it's all coming back to last year's Zooms were like they're kind of like I know it's a blur. They're kind of like gauzy. There's like a gauze going over them. But Catherine was here last year with us couch surfing.
I was, and next year I will be there in person.
There you go. And we have to have the conversation going. We'll actually, maybe we should bring a couch into Warwick's.
Good idea.
I know, it'd be cute.
Really good idea.
We actually should do that.
We should have a couch in Warwick's. Anyways, real quick, so we can get to this. And so don't start the clock on the half hour, Liz, until I get done.
Yeah, I know how this works.
So we are located in La Jolla, San Diego, California. We are celebrating our 125th anniversary this year. Yay. We are a women-owned, fourth generation owned, oldest continuously family-owned bookstore in the country. And one of the reasons for that is because we have wonderful customers who still buy books from us all the time. So I always like to say, anyway, there is to get a book, you can get it from Warwick. So click those links, go to our website. We have lots of other great events going on. I don't know if anybody's like 80s fans. Yep, 6 weeks. If you're an 80s fan, then you like Andrew McCarthy. You might be a little too old for you guys.
No, that was my. Are you kidding?
That's
what he is talking about.
All right.
We're gonna host all those movies.
We're gonna host him on Thursday, so can't say that I'm not looking forward to that one too. So with that, I'm gonna go away in the back and start doing my thing, and you guys have a great conversation.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks, and we love Warwick. And if you want to hear a really interesting story too, when you get off here, Google Warwick's and how some investors just came together to save the bookstore. I won't spoil it, but if you want a really great happy ending story and you need that in your life right now, definitely Google that later today, and I'll show you how beloved Warwick's is in the San Diego and La Jolla community. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk with our good friend Catherine McKenzie.
Okay, match my. I did this for you, Liz. Do you appreciate it?
Thank you.
Oh, that's cute.
I know. Okay, I'm gonna grab my copies in the room. But anyway,
I have mine. It's okay.
Great. So Lisa, tell us about Catherine.
I would love to. The bio right here at my fingertips. Catherine McKenzie is a best-selling author who has sold over 1 million books. Oh, that's impressive. She practiced law in Montreal for 20 years before retiring to write full-time. Her most recent novel, oh no, this is not her most recent novel. Her last novel, You Can't Catch Me, has been optioned for a television series by Paramount. An avid runner, skier, and amateur tennis player, Catherine lives and writes in Montreal, Canada. Her most recent novel, 6 Weeks to Live, is out now. What day did it come out?
May 4th.
May 4th. So it just came out. And
here it is. Your Amazon bio.
I know, you're right. I do.
Yes, but I saved it.
Thank you.
I saved it.
I will go do that after this.
Get on that right now because you're not busy or anything.
Well, we're so excited you're here. And we love this book. We actually did it for our local affiliate, Fox affiliate. We do a book club every month. And 6 Weeks to Live was one of our May choices. Wendy Walker, who's a best-selling author as well, loved it too. This is what she had to say about 6 Weeks to Live. It begins with a devastating premise, then takes the reader on the most unexpected ride as a mother seeks to uncover the truth about the illness that is about to take her life. With skillful plotting and flawless narration, McKenzie weaves together past and present in this twisty, page-turning, and ultimately heartbreaking novel, thoroughly enjoyable. So tell us what it's about.
So it's about a woman who gets diagnosed with brain cancer and given 6 weeks to live. But she finds out that a year ago, she thinks she was poisoned a year ago. And so she decides to spend her last days on Earth trying to figure out who tried to kill her before she dies. So think like DOA meets domestic suspense.
Right. Hey, you're so concise. I think that is probably the most concise description an author has ever given about their book.
I got some books have like, it's easier to do the elevator pitch
than
others.
Right. No, I totally agree. Now, I actually know the answer to this, but I think this is something people want to know because I was on one of your events last week, but it's such an interesting premise. Tell us how you came up with it, and was there any real life inspiration or a crossover with this?
Yeah, so an extended family member actually got this diagnosis, and nobody tried to kill her. That part I made up. And it was just very interesting to me, like both just as a person and what happens when you get a clock put on your life, like it happens, but it's pretty rare. Right. And so I was just sort of observing the choices she was making about how she decided to spend her time and what was important to her to do. And I was, of course, thinking like, what would I do with my time? And, go to the beach with a pitcher of margaritas, I think is my answer. But that was not what she did. And you know what? I had to come up with a book idea. and it just seemed like a good framing to me to have that ticking clock in the suspense genre. It's always nice to have that countdown. And so I tried to think about, how would that work as a suspense novel? And I'd always been a fan of the movie DOA growing up. There was a remake in the 80s with Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan. It was their second movie together after Inner Space for those 80s kids out there. And so I think that just those two ideas fused in my mind, and I pitched that and something else to my editor. And of course, the other thing was totally fleshed out. And this was literally what I just said 2 minutes ago, that little elevator pitch. And she was like, yeah, that one. I'm like, okay. Now I have to come up with a plot. So.
Right. Well, yeah, I can see why your editor chose this one. I think it's a really, really compelling premise. And one of the things I think that makes it unique are the multiple narratives in the book, right? And so I want you to talk a little bit about that, but I also want you to talk about the process as an author and how you make that decision is it going to be first person or third person? It's going to be one narrative or four narratives, or I know in I'll Never Tell, I think you 7 narrative and like
I had 7 narrators. Yeah, that was like I pushed that as far as I could go.
Right. Yeah, but you did it well. I mean, you did it well. That's hard to do. So can you talk to us a little bit about that process?
Sure. When I get an idea for a book, I think about the concept and where that's going to go. So like, what's the twist going to be? What's the end point going to be? And then I start thinking about who the main character is going to be. And how they fit into that structure. And then that sort of leads to, in these types of books, there's a whodunit and a whydunit, right? And so once I get the main character and I know the whodunit, whydunit, then often that person's voice kind of shows up in my head. And I'll make decisions. So I was thinking about like, okay, I had done I'll Never Tell 7 narrators. Then I had gone down in You Can't Catch Me to 1, which I hadn't done in a really long time. And I did that book first person, and had been 7 books that I hadn't done that. That was its own challenge. And I think because I knew, the main character will die in this book, that I wanted other voices in the book. And so at some point I decided that she was going to have adult triplets and that I would make all 4 of them narrators. And I wanted to do a mix. I'm just, you know what I'm asking, like, yeah, I'm like, I had to check the book because of, you know, sometimes I don't even remember my own novels, but I decided that because it was Jennifer's story, I'd put her in first person, but her daughters are all in third person. So that was a way to draw a distinction. It's really hard. I've done it once before where I had 3 narrators all in first person. It's very hard to keep people's voices distinct when you do that. Where it's kind of easier in a way in third person, oddly, to do it. So, but yeah, that was the choice that I made. And I was partly inspired by, so these triplets are actually a set of identical twins and a fraternal twin. And I have another writer friend who has triplets who have that configuration, and they're 8 years old and they're not out, you know, doing bad things or whatever. But I just thought it was so fascinating, that configuration. And so I wanted to incorporate that. And I think my natural voice is first person, either in the past or even in the present. I think all my first books were written first person. And I remember making a deliberate choice with a book later on to write in the third person to see if I could even do it. And now I think I can do both. But if you just didn't ask me, I would just come out first person.
Right. Yeah, we've written a book. The Good Widow for us was first person, third person, 2 narratives, and I loved that in this book. I like when there's that distinction, and you wouldn't think it works, but it actually really, really works, because I do think there's a purpose. Like with ours, it was like Jax, who's alive, and then Dylan, who was not alive. So we wanted like that kind of distinction where she's talking about the past and one's talking about the present. And I think it's interesting. So my next question was going to be, which one do you enjoy most? And I think you're saying first person, you say that's what you would choose, but what do you enjoy the most? Like that's what you choose instinctively.
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, I would say now, even though like my book next year, I've gone back to one first person narrator that starts actually in first person past tense and then converges with the present. And so I switch like 2/3 of the way through the book, and I'm doing a final edit, and I still keep finding places where I've gone back to the past tense, and I'm like, no, this is in present now. I think it's my preference, but definitely third person has a role to play. Like when I did the 7 narrators and I'll never tell, I was like, no. So there is one in first person, and then the others are in third person. I think you have to be careful when you're doing it in our type of book, because you don't want to give it away. Like third person, you do feel more removed as a reader from a third person character. And I think that can make it sort of obvious who the bad person is if somebody's in first person and somebody isn't. Like my book Smoke, I had 2, it's a mystery. I had 2 characters, one in first person and one in third person. And a lot of the reviewers were like, oh, I never really understood. Like I always felt distant from this other character. And I was like, oh, that's just the point of view. You know, that's what did that. So I'm not trying to answer your question, but I mean, I think I do prefer to write in first person, but it doesn't always serve the story. And so I try and figure out like what's the best, but you know, like I'm never going to write in second person, whatever that is. Like, you know,
and there's all like
what is that?
I don't even know. It's like, it's like Catherine walked into the room or something, you know what I mean? And like,
I don't
like that narrator from Arrested Development, you know, that, right? And, you know, and then there's like omniscient, like, I don't even think I described that right. Second person, I think, is if you read Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall, I think that is in second person. That's what I think.
Is Catherine Kepnes's You, is that second person? I guess we should know. We've all written.
I don't know.
I don't
know. I mean, I think writers spend a lot more time thinking about that.
We don't have
than readers, right? If it works, it works.
Right.
And there's all this, I mean, this writer's group I'm in today, literally with someone's, let's talk about point of view. Can we do omniscient narrator? And there's all these like, don't do this, or, you know, if it works, it works. And whatever your natural voice
I think whatever works. And you know, it's funny, and I guess maybe the reason I was asking you this question is I always thought I prefer first person, and we've written a lot of our books in first person, and we some in third, and like I said, some in both. But the book that we're writing right now is all third person with
Okay.
a lot of point of views, but they switch back and forth and not in like they switch back and
Mhm.
forth even in between chapters. And I actually was like, oh yeah, I actually love writing in third person because I agree with you about suspense. I think first person's important, but this isn't suspense. It's more of like a rom-com-y commercial fiction. But I like that, like in first person, the character always has to, you can't say anything unless they're self-aware of it already, really, you know, because they have to have the thought.
Right.
And I do like third person, you kind of, I don't know, Lisa, am I kind of saying the right? It's just like,
No,
you
you
don't
can
have to be
explain more. I
aware of
get it.
everything, you know what I mean? Like, so we've really been enjoying that.
It can be fun. And I think if you're doing multiple narrators, it's probably the easiest thing to do.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So Lisa, hold up the book again. So let's talk about your cover. And I'm asking another question. I already know the answer. I'm really smart at this one, but tell us about this process. Because I know this wasn't the first cover that you looked at. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's so funny as an author that the cover thing. So what always happens is you get an email from your editor who's like, here's our, you know, some cover ideas and we love these and, you know, we love this one the most, but what do you think? And I've had the gamut in those emails. Like you're always so nervous when you open it because it's like, is this gonna suck or are they gonna be amazing? And you don't know, you know. And the first round of covers, you know, we had one that like the team liked. It's always a conversation in my experience, but I think it went to marketing and marketing was not happy.
That the one with the glass, because I think
the one with the glass. Yeah,
I voted for that one too.
Yeah. But you know, I'm very happy with what we ended up with. So.
I love this one.
Yeah. So I think they came back and were like, try again, and they did, and they came up with a great cover. So yeah. Good. But it happens to all of us. Like I think I won't say what books, but there are some books that I like the cover more than others. And sometimes it's just like, okay, this is as good as it's going to get. You know, I have to, like, I think I'm not speaking out of turn, but I think Allison Wynn tells the story for one of her books. They went through 23 different versions.
Between me and you.
Yeah. Yeah. They did 23 versions to get to that cover, you know? And I'm just like, I just don't have the staying power.
Well, they kept sending you really terrible covers. I know you pretty well. I think you'd have the staying power.
You're right. If they kept
listen, I don't think you would just
it happened to me once at my former publisher for my book Fractured. Like the first round were like, okay, a bit women's fiction-y, which didn't make sense for the book. And then they just kept getting worse. And I didn't understand because this cover designer is fantastic. And he's actually designed 4 or 5 covers for me, including the one for I'll Never Tell, which I think is a fantastic cover. And finally I was like, what's happening? Could you just ask him to just pretend that a man wrote this book? Because it was my first real suspense novel. And I was like, could you know, because I don't understand these women's fiction covers that I'm getting. And they were like, oh, well, actually, he did send us these other covers in the first round, and there were 3 amazing covers in this first round of covers that I never saw. And in fact, I wanted to go, like, I liked the cover we ended up with, which is like the tipped over chair, but there was this really cool cover that he did with the letter F that was like traffic and little cars were, and I loved it, but they were like, oh, it reads too literary. So we didn't get to go with that one. And then there was a third one that was also great. And I was like, what happened here? Like, why
also subjective. It's like someone opened that email and they're like, I like these, so I'm going to send her these. And then 5 other people might have opened the same email. And
whereas with I'll Never Tell, literally that was in the first batch of covers. That cover that ended up, it was in the first batch of covers. And I was like, that one, I want that one. That's the one I want. And, I have a different publisher in Canada, and sometimes we get the same cover, sometimes we don't. And they had sent some covers, which were good. And one in particular was quite good. It just wasn't as good as this. And I remember saying to my agent, because Amazon had sent one that was very similar to the Canadian cover. So it's like, should we just go with that because they both had the same idea? And I was like, no, let's fight for this. Like if they say no, they say no, but let's go for the best one.
Yeah.
And they came back right away and they were like, oh yeah, forget our covers. This is awesome. So
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's nice. You have like a bigger pool to pull from.
Yes,
We have
right.
a question. It's actually from Julie, but it's a really good one. If you could go back to before you published your first book, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh man, just abandon ship. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, just jump overboard without a life
forget it.
vest and just sink to the bottom.
You know what I think
It's
is
fine.
advice that I did kind of give myself at the time, but and I still try and give myself this advice is just to like when good things are happening, savor it. Because it's a hard business. There's a lot of up and
Mhm.
downs. I think Liz knows that I'm fond of saying like no good book news comes without bad book news following within 24 hours. Like
Right.
it's just, I don't know why, but it's like something good happens and then something bad has to happen. So I think, yeah, just savor it. And I did do that with my first book. Like I remember getting the first finished copy in my law office and I sat there in my office and I read my own book, you know, and it was just a surreal experience. And I remember going to the bookstore and seeing my book in the bookstore for the first time. And so I did do that, but I think the nature of the business, and particularly if you're publishing once a year, but even if you're not, it's just like, okay, well, it's out. Okay. Like next, you know, and like take a moment, you know, this is my second book out in the pandemic. And I was like, it'd be so easy to just be like, okay, well, it's out again, you know, and not do anything. But I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, I bought a party dress and I had a lunch and I put on my party dress and drank champagne. And I just think it's important to do that. Like celebrate the wins because there's going to be losses and lots of them maybe. But yeah, celebrate the wins.
I think that's good advice. I think that's something Lisa and I are not great at. We kind of tend to gloss over like really good news, and then and we always say we're going to try to get better at it. I don't know. I don't know if we're any better.
I don't know what that is too, right? Because like good news never feels as good as the bad news feels bad. Like,
Right.
Like, why is that? Right.
Well, and I think in publishing, and we were talking about this in the green room before, and honestly, I just had this thought, Lisa, we could do a whole podcast on the conversations we have with all the
in the green room,
out surfing authors in the green room.
Oh,
would be
we should.
Hilarious, the stuff that comes out.
I want to come on your podcast.
I know you should. So anyway, but we were talking and it's like, there's just, you do really have to celebrate those wins because publishing is it's a tough business. And there's a lot of, for every success that you had, there's probably 20 projections behind that. And I think people don't always realize that. Well, I always have to be negative. It's just a reality of the business.
Yeah. But I always say that like publishing is like a way to break down joy. And like not even in a malicious way, but if you think about it, like imagine if you type the end and then the next thing you got your finished copies and it was in a bookstore and it was selling, but that's not what happens, right? It's like there's editorial and to rip your book apart and put it back together again, and then you have to do like the copy edits, sure, very important but boring, and then there's the proofread, and then there's the whole cover conversation, and then they give you like, so everything is broken down into these little bits. And so it's hard to see the big picture and be like, you know, it's like, oh God, I got to pick the font, interior font, you know?
Right.
So it's all these tiny, tiny little things that don't happen all at once. And so it does feel almost anticlimactic by the time the book is out. And another writer I know calls it publication day, dull thud day. This is like, because your book just like, you know, drops, dull thud.
Yeah.
Well, and there's just so much pressure writing on that first week for authors. And that's why you guys, it's so important to pre-order books and review books, because that first week can actually determine what a publisher does in 6 weeks. We really got you have 6 weeks to live.
Yeah, 6 weeks to live.
Your book
to live. That's right.
Your book has
like,
6 weeks
and
to
your
live
independent
after
bookstores
It really does.
Yeah. So like buy the book from Warwick's, but please also review it on Amazon. You know, like that's
Yes.
I just really liked my pun. I know. Anyway,
that was good.
That was pretty good.
That was really good, actually.
Thank you. So this was mentioned in your bio, but you have enjoyed a career as a very successful attorney before you left to write full time, and it was pretty recent in the last year that you've done that. Can you tell us a little bit about what that transition was like and what it's like to write full time now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've fully absorbed it because of the pandemic, right? Like I was at home all the time when I was still practicing law, and now I'm at home all the time. So I definitely have less on my plate, but I mean, I think everyone like has less capacity right now to handle things just in general, right? Like I accomplish so much less than I used to in a day. But to focus on the positives, I like work out way more than I used to, so that's good.
Right.
Necessary for all the extra wine I'm drinking, but and yeah, it's kind of nice to like lean out a little bit. I was a very lean in person and I still am in a lot of ways, but to just like lean out and be like, you know what, I don't have to be a master of the universe. Like,
right.
Okay.
Right.
And I was telling someone today, when I announced that I was leaving, one of my former law partners, who's now a judge, was like, well, you're so talented and smart, and it would be just such a shame if you didn't continue to do something in the law. And I was like, what's with the pressure, dude? Like, is being a best-selling author not enough for you? Like,
right.
No, this is why I'm leaving. Enough of the rat race,
Right.
So yeah, so that's been a transition. And for my writing, I didn't used to write every day. I hadn't written every day in 12 years or something. And
Are you writing every day now? You write every day now?
Now I try and write Monday to Fridays, and I actually try and take the weekend off. Novel concept, not write on the weekends. Like I actually do sometimes, but yeah, I've actually taken whole weekends, no writing, and not feeling guilty about it, which is nice.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I had 2 full-time jobs for 10 years.
Right. And it wears you down. I mean, I think that wears you down after a while.
It does.
Especially because you write fast. Like
right.
I feel like every time we talk, you're like, I just finished a book. And then you're like, I just finished another book.
I know.
I just wrote the end.
I make people feel bad about themselves.
Or like a movie. Or
like write fast too. But yeah, it's allowed me to like open up and explore other options.
Right.
Like writing scripts and TV shows and stuff like that. That may or may not ever see the light of day, but it's just fun to write for fun without pressure.
Right. Yeah, I think that's when we do our best writing, when we're
definitely
writing, just for joy. I think that you can feel that difference. I whenever I read a book, I can, not always, but sometimes if I can tell, if I'll go back and find some interviews in the author and they'll be like, oh my God, I was under so much pressure when I was writing this or whatever. And you can almost feel it like in the pages. The book might still be like excellent, but you can kind of feel that pressure.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely advice that I would give to, somebody who's had their first book out. I mean, first of all, write your second book before your first book comes out if you can.
Oh yeah.
And then I think you have to shut out the noise, and you do have to write for yourself. And it doesn't mean like, of course I care about my fans and I want to deliver the best book possible for them. But the way that I do that is to not think about them when I'm writing. I just have to think about me. I have to think about the story that won't leave me alone, the one that I'm compelled to write. And if I write that way, then, I will deliver the best book for the fans. But if I'm thinking like, I'm sure this happened to you guys, particularly as a space we were writing in. My first book was a rom-com spin. So many people were like, are you going to write a sequel to that book? And I was like, what? No, and I did eventually actually kind of write a sequel. Like I wrote a novella based on another character, but only because I got the idea. But I knew that actually wouldn't make people happy, because in a rom-com, you put the couple together and they're all happy at the end. So like, you're going to break them up? What am I going to do with them?
Right.
And so I'm glad I didn't do that.
Right.
Because like, it's very hard for me to, though I love the novella, but again, I followed a different character.
Right.
It's hard to think of like in that genre, a sequel that worked just as well as the first one, like, maybe Bridget Jones, the second Bridget Jones, she pulled it off, but it's so rare. And more often than not, you end up being disappointed,
I have a theory about that too. I think that unless a book has been written with a sequel in mind or a trilogy, they usually, and I won't name any like really.
Oh no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Sequel, and then I was like, what's going on? And I just think that if you've got to write the first book with what's next in mind, if you're going to do that.
If you're going to do that, I agree.
And I think the book blows up, and then everyone wants a sequel, and the publisher is like, please, and they're like, fine. And
I will say, you know, Marissa de los Santos, they're not sequels, but they are the sort of same cast of characters through all of her books.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. Yeah. And I think she pulls it off. But again, these are not traditional, everything's tied up in a neat bow at the end. And it's, you know, it's so funny because I know Marissa and I've never talked to her about that. Like, was that the plan all along, or how did that happen? You know, because she's now written 7 or 8 books with these characters, and that's more like visiting old friends. It's like, oh, what has Theo been up to, you know, like now? And so I enjoy visiting that world that she's created. And I feel like I know those people, but that's so rare. And I think you're right that a lot of these sequels that we won't name that aren't successful are ones
where with movies. I mean, did we really need Hot Tub Time Machine 2? Did we? Did we enjoy it?
Did we see one?
One was good.
One was really good, but 2 was not good.
I mean, look, you know, in movies though, I will say that I think that it's a different space, and you can create. You
get away with so much in movies. You can do whatever you want. Like everything, use a plot device to get to your ending. Everything can be unrealistic. Like we watch movies and we look at each other. Our editor would never. You could never do that in a book.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. It's easier to suspend disbelief going into movies than.
Well, right.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, speaking of books, tell us, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. What are the 3 best books you've read? It could be this year or last year or in the last calendar year, that you loved.
I have an answer.
Good.
So one of them you recommended to me, Stuart Tartan's The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I loved it, and I remember you saying it starts a little slow, just stick with it, and I loved it. And I just thought the execution and imagination in that book it blew me away. Like, and I went back to the beginning afterwards. I was like, there are mistakes.
It doesn't have like a diagram.
But I was like, there's mistakes in this book. I'm going to find the mistakes. And I was like highlighting stuff. I'm like, no, he did it right, man. Damn it.
Yeah.
So I love that. And then 2 books I read this year that are a little bit similar to one another, but both fantastic. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig.
So good.
And
one
then
of my
also,
favorites this year.
E. Schwab's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
So good.
Which I also loved. So I think those are really, and it's so interesting to me because that, like, it's not even magical realism, but that fantasy something element of those books is not something that I'm normally that attracted to, but in the same vein, I love The Night Circus. That's one of my like all-time favorite books.
Right.
So I think I would put those 3 books all kind of in that bucket. And yeah, just all of them stood out to me as amazing reads. And I think to add one more, just that I'm really looking forward to, is Mary Kubica's next book that's coming out next week.
Next week, right? Yeah.
I don't have it. I pre-ordered it, and I'm like, I know what I'm reading next week. So
nice.
It'd be really good.
I love her books.
I've actually read all 3 of your favorites, and I would agree. And so I'm going to add one. If you loved those, I'm going to add. And we recently interviewed her here, The 9 Lives of Rose Napolitano.
Oh, right. You were telling me that the other day.
I want you to read that.
Okay, I'm going to read it.
I think you're really going to like it. And she was delightful when we interviewed her. But it was the concept where I was like, oh, and we usually get the books before. We actually didn't get that one. And I went and bought it. So I was like, I got to read this book. And it was really, really good.
Awesome.
So
I'm always looking for a good read. And you know what, starting this year, I had not been reading in the pandemic, which is tragic. So I was like, you know what, I need to make it kind of like homework. So I'm going to read 10% of a book a night on my Kindle. And if I do that every day, after 10 days, I'll have finished a book. And it broke I'm really glad I made myself do that. Because since then now, I can read books normally again, and I'm not like looking like, okay, how much more? And it's not even about the book. It was just my brain was broken from the pandemic and the election and the insurrection and the, like I could read news and I couldn't go into a fictional world, which was upsetting me because I'm such a big reader, and it's so important to me for writers to read too, so it was I'm glad that I have one more book. My Dark Vanessa, I also really liked.
Oh yeah,
and I was able
that
in the pandemic. It's a dark book. Like
that was a lot. I
yeah.
really enjoyed it, but I felt weird enjoying it. If that makes
it's like it was like
you know what I'm talking about.
Like, I totally know. It's like if you're reading Lolita and you're like, I shouldn't be enjoying this. This is terrible. I do have one other book rec for a really fun summer.
Yeah, tell me them again because someone's asking. I need to type them in.
Yeah, thank you.
There's a hearing impaired person that needs me to.
But Alyssa Friedman's new book is coming out May 18th. Last summer at the Golden Hotel, and I read it like a million years ago.
I have. It's on my TBR. I really love her books.
Really fun. Summer in the Catskills. If you love Dirty Dancing, it's a great family drama.
I love the Floating Feldman.
Yeah, she does it very similar in a way of like the story's different, but she's really good at these intergenerational stories and conflicts. So yeah, it's coming out in 2 weeks, and if you get book of the month, it's like one of the add-ons this month, so you can add it on to your book of the month selection.
You said the Midnight Library, right?
Midnight Library.
Addie LaRue. What's the full title of Addie LaRue?
The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and then Alyssa Friedman's
Those Fingers Flying. She's a
last summer at the Golden Hotel.
So while she's doing that, we're kind of wrapping up, but I want you to tell
what's the author of that one?
V.E. Schwab.
V.E. Schwab.
I'm
not great at spelling though, but I'm going to do my best.
She'll get the point. What are you working on now?
So my book next year, which I think will come out around June, is called Please Join Us. And it's about a woman who joins a women's networking group that turns sinister.
Oh. Have you read The Herd by Andrew
I haven't
Hart?
read The Herd. No, I've deliberately not read it. Like I had already written half the book when that came out, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to read The Herd.
Well, I'm excited.
Because I don't want to be influenced, but I will read it once my book is locked.
Right.
I will read it. Yeah.
Well, that was a cool premise. Like I'm excited that's, I actually didn't know that. That's your next premise. It's awesome. Because I do think there's a lot to explore there. And it's very.
It's Alyssa's next title. Sorry.
Last Summer at the Golden Hotel.
Okay.
Right. Well, she's doing that. I'm going to ask you one more question so she has time to do that. So
Hotel. Sorry.
Hotel. Yeah.
Hotel, not motel.
The title was 6 Weeks to Live. Was that the original title, or did it change? I think it was, right?
No, it was. This was the original title the whole time, which it hasn't happened in a while. Mm-hmm. This was my I pitched it as 6 Weeks to Live. There was I got to keep that title the whole time.
Okay. It's a great title.
Thank you.
It's really good. Hey, Julie.
I have one final question. I love this one too, because we're kind of going out of the pandemic now. So we're all looking at what.
Oh, and Liz, sorry, Julie. Liz, what's the one you recommended? The nine
lives of Rose Napolitano. And that's fine if you don't spell it right.
It's a lot of
Napolitano. Napaloti.
They'll find it. If you even search the name, it comes up. Okay,
Julie. I feel like I forgot one, but
it's okay. Julie, what's your question?
Okay, this is So, what was the worst thing that you bought online during the pandemic?
I mean, the worst thing? That is a good question. I definitely bought some clothes that.
Did you get stuck in that? Did you get stuck buying things from China that you thought you were buying from, and it's shows up and it's this big? Yeah, I had that happen.
I have a couple dresses that are never going to be worn.
Yeah,
Right.
I bought a pantsuit. Like I bought a pantsuit I'm in LA and I have like, meetings. I'm taking some meetings in LA outside, all safely. And I bought this, what I thought was cute pantsuit, and I put it on today and I was like, I looked like I gained a COVID 4000 in this, but it was kind of too late so I wore this thing that made, and I'm like, okay, well, that's not coming home with me.
I love it.
Right.
Yeah. We were all in the middle of masks, and for whatever reason, I kept buying lipstick. Like,
Oh, that's funny.
so I couldn't buy enough lipstick. I was like, my husband's like,
I
what?
definitely did like all the pandemic purchasing. So I went through all the phases. Like I watched The Tiger King.
Right.
I made bread. I bought a Peloton. It's actually an Echelon,
but
but
a Peloton too. And I know we
know.
always talk about this, but I don't know if
I
I'm
love it.
following you. You're following me.
But I love it. And so I think I went through all of those things. I mean, I don't have pants. All my pants have no elastics now, no underwires in my bras. Like,
right.
You know.
Right.
Lisa and I have a penchant for ordering stuff off Instagram, like seeing the Instagram ad and then we order it.
Really into pillow slides right now. Look them up. They are the most comfortable like shoe in the world. Pillow slides.
Okay.
Instagram got me, but
now that you said that, I will be served that ad on Instagram for the next.
You're gonna get it now, and you're gonna thank me because it's actually a good one to get because they're just like it's like walking on clouds, Catherine.
Well, because Lisa and I share an Instagram account, so when you click, then you start getting like 1,000 ones. I always know when she's looking for bathing suits, when she's looking for like bedding.
I love that.
Anyway, on that note,
on that creepy note,
I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but you can find us, Lisa and I, at Lisa and Liz on Instagram or our website, lizandlisa.com. Catherine, where can we find you?
So I'm Catherine McKenzie, author on Instagram, on Facebook, catherinemckenzie.com, or CE McKenzie1 on Twitter. My name's too common and like all variations were taken. But I mostly, less now, but for a long time, I mostly tweeted my political opinions there. So if, you want to know what I think about the state of the world, follow me on Twitter. My book photos are on Instagram.
Lisa, you sent all of yours just to panelists.
Hold on.
Julie, I told Julie, Julie, can you cut and paste?
I think so. Let me see if I can do this really quickly.
I can do it.
Okay. Why I'm not allowed? Somehow I'm not allowed to talk to.
Did I not?
I was like,
thank you.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, that didn't work.
No, it didn't work.
You'll have to do it.
Hold on, because I did.
Here. I type fast.
You can cut and paste it, Julie, and then you just put it in.
I tried.
I tried that.
Hold on. I think I just did it. No.
I'm doing it. I'm a fast typer. Hold on.
Okay.
There you go.
We're coming for you, Barbara.
We're coming at you, Barbara
Brown. We're trying.
You're not getting authors though at this point. You're just getting titles. Oh, yep. Just title, but it's fine. Yeah, she can figure it out.
9 lives.
I don't want her to think. Please, somebody tell her that I wasn't ignoring her because I did type them in.
Oh, what was that last one?
The 9
someone
lives
with
of
authorization. Please tell Barbara Brown I didn't ignore her, please.
There you go.
You just can't hear those.
I did it.
Well, whatever.
Okay, let's give her a minute to write them down.
She said she was hearing impaired, so I just want to make sure she could hear me.
There.
Hi.
I'll show you my book again.
She says we make her laugh.
This book, which you can buy at this store right here.
Oh, she graduated from La Jolla High.
Yeah, she did. Okay.
Here we go. All right, Barbara, did you get them? Well, I don't want to sign off because then you won't get them.
I think she did. She says we make her laugh. I think that's
okay. It's good. And you know what else? Maybe I can figure out how to like copy it from the chat or something. I don't know.
It's weird that you can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't copy and paste. It was very
No,
simple.
I know. I tried that too. And I was like, oh, there's some weird link here. I don't even know what that is.
Fine.
Yeah.
We worked
And
really
Susan-
hard for these books. We were
All
trying
my
to
hard work
in your book.
just
on
for
this.
nothing.
Susan Watts on Facebook.
need to
is saying
practice typing.
It was a
Fine.
fun interview. So
Oh,
this was a
good.
fun
Oh,
one
good.
today. Yes.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
Barbara has them. Okay,
She's got
great.
them. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
All right, we did our job.
So you guys, if you do buy any of those book recommendations, please buy them from Warwick's. Julie and everyone there, they work so hard to put together such amazing content for you guys. And it's so easy. I just got some books last week from the media mail. It's cheap and they're like, boom,
Here they come.
there. They were
Yeah,
there in a couple
it's really
days.
fast.
Crazy.
There they
So please don't forget to support Warwick's
Thank you.
or any independent bookstore. But
Yeah, and wherever you're at, we obviously would love you to support Warwick's, but wherever you live, and that's the other thing. We were on with an author the other day, and somebody was saying like, "Why don't you come to our hometown? Independent bookstores." I said, the best way is for you to spend your dollars at the store you want that author to come to.
Right.
Tell your friends to buy
Right.
that author's books from
Exactly.
that store.
Yeah. People don't
Right.
always understand how that works. Too,
Yeah,
right?
the
They're
concept
like,
is just like, just
why don't you just
come.
fly around the country? I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, will you be paying for that?
Yeah, just pay for that. So yeah.
Right.
So anyways, Catherine, it's always so great to have you.
Next
Hopefully
year,
we'll see you in. We got to figure out how to get a couch to
yeah, we got to get a
Warwick's.
couch. Maybe we could like crowdfund a couch for you guys.
Yeah, put a couch in Warwick's. I'm loving it.
Yeah. That's a good
Right?
idea.
That'd be fun.
yeah.
All right, when we
People can
close
name
out,
the couch or something,
yeah. Like,
All right.
what
Well,
was that weird kid show that had a couch? I can't remember.
Pee Wee
Oh,
Herman.
my big comfy couch or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Also
Pee-wee
Pee Wee Herman.
Time for us to go now.
I think that's like
Yeah.
We haven't been drinking, we swear.
We swear to God.
I know, we really haven't.
And we don't, and Catherine, we don't
Okay.
go back into a green room after this. So when we say goodbye,
Okay.
we're gone. So
We're gone.
We're
Great.
gone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, ladies. Thank
So-
you so much for being here.
Bye.
Good night,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.